Drink it in, man.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! Cornbread!
Drink it in, man.
Detroit Koolaid, what's going on, everybody? It's Friday, and we are back. And I got Grifka here. Grifka, what's going on, my man?
Yeah, looking forward to the Chicago game on Sunday.
Looking forward to it. You know, we've come off 2 losses. You know, everybody's down on the Lions. Like, we'll probably get into it in this show, Grifka, but I'm so sick of, like, this flip-flopping. And this is why I yell at you a lot, too, is because, like, when they win a game or two, everyone's, like, on cloud 9. Then they lose a game or two, and, like, the world's over, and, like, this is the worst team ever in football. Like, I don't know what's the record's going to be at the end of the year, but, you know, if they go on, like, a 5-game losing streak, I'm going to flip out. But, like, a couple games against, you know, some decent teams, I'm not going crazy. But, yeah, this is a huge game to get off the schneid in Chicago. No one's giving us a chance. Like, let's talk about it.
Okay. Well, I have a couple things I want to ask you first. I know you don't like harping on Golden Tate, and I thought he was a big key, and he might have been a big key in the Minnesota game. But I read that you know, Detroit actually made him an offer before they eventually traded him. Do you think that would have been a bad move, or are you happy that fell through, or what do you think about that?
Man, I've been talking about it since day one. Like, I don't know if Bobby Quinn is listening to this podcast or if he has my phone bugged, but, like, for all year I've said, you know, Kenny Golladay was going to be an ascending top player. That's happened. Like, I've been saying since Hughes fell in love with Golden Tate to trade him before it's too late and let these young guns go. He did that. You know, I told him to make a big trade and bring in a good defensive player. He went out and got snacks. Like, I feel like they probably just made Tate an offer to save face and to probably try to almost, like, put him under the gun, saying, okay, you know, it's about to be the trade deadline. We have some offers in place. We wouldn't mind keeping you, but I bet you that offer was nowhere near what he thinks he's worth. But it was a way to kind of say, we got some leverage. Let's try to use it. Maybe get him for, you know, 8, 9, 10 at the most, instead of this 13 to 15 like they're talking. So, yeah, I'm glad it didn't happen. I can see why that would come out now and why they would do it, but I think it was just a leverage play of, you know, maybe we can get him to sign. He's comfortable here. The deadline's coming up, and when he didn't agree or he thinks he can make top dollar, then it was pretty easy to make that trade and get that nice 3rd rounder. So I'm totally happy with how it turned out.
Okay. And then just wanted to ask you one other question here. After when their special teams coordinator was fired, and a lot of people started questioning, you know, JBC, you know, could he be next? And Matt Pat gave him the dreaded vote of confidence. It always seems like that is the death nail when somebody's boss gives them the vote of confidence. Either the GM or the owner says, no, this is going to be our head coach for a while. It seems within like 2 or 3 weeks, at the end of the season, the guy's gone. Do you think JBC is the next to go, even with the dreaded vote of confidence from Matt Patricia saying he likes where the offense is at?
Well, where I sit with that is, you know, I went off on JBC last podcast, you know, on the Wednesday show. You know, right now where I sit with them is I'm real frustrated with the creativity of this offense. I don't feel it's explosive. I feel like there's a lot of aw shucks attitude when you hear JBC, Matt Stafford, all these guys just kind of, oh, you know, we're just going to work on the fundamentals. Oh, you know, every game's different, all this stuff. I mean, I think he's here for the year. He wasn't a Patricia guy. He was here. They brought him back. I think this is kind of just a year to see. I don't see him going anywhere, or even if he did, it's not like you have anybody good in place. It's not like there's a young coordinator underneath of them that I'm excited about. It's not like there's an experienced coordinator on this staff that you could slide in and feel better about. So, I mean, I don't mind him staying the year, but if he doesn't produce and they don't get more dynamic or get more explosive and creative, definitely has to go, and they have to get in somebody here that either has done it or a guy that's just new and really innovative. And I don't care if the new guy likes Stafford, if they are buddies, if they're if he has a good coaching temperament for Stafford. I just want a guy that draws up a great offense, scores touchdowns, and wins games for us, helps us win games. And it's getting to that point where if JBC is not that guy, I don't think firing him now does much for the team. So I'm not really a fan of it. But I mean, if they had a plan and could bring somebody in, I mean, I'm not in for keeping him like I was back in the day when he seemed like he was getting some stuff going. So, I mean, he's probably next to go, but I don't think it's coming right down the chute. I think Matt Pat, too, has a bigger picture than a lot of these people who, we have 2-3 bad games, or let's say we lose the next 2 games, so it's 4 in a row. I mean, that's all you'll hear about is got to get rid of the offensive coordinator. The quarterback has to go. It's does that help us win the next few games? I don't think so.
Yeah, I want to agree with you on that. I think JVC is one of those things yeah, he wasn't Matt Pat's guy. And I still think somewhere in the back rooms, it was Stafford wanted to keep him around. It's hey, I'm comfortable with this guy. I like what he runs. I like what he does. But if this continues to look this way and the stagnant offense and struggling in the red zone, they can do whatever they want. They can go get another tight end, one that's more dangerous in the red zone, or bring in another slot receiver or something like that to give Matt Stafford another weapon. But I'm believing if this offense doesn't improve dramatically, Matt Pat's going to go find his own guy, and JBC is going to be shown the door. So it's the offense isn't like the greatest show on turf, where they're just Mike Mars is chucking the ball around and throwing up massive points every game. There's points where they're on the field and they're at the opponent's 40-yard line, and I look at it, I'm like, gosh, they're still 40 yards away from the end zone. And it's oh man, 40 yards, we got this. It's just it seems like there's we had discussed, there's no chunk plays. Everything's just a methodical, real short and very plotting down the field. And maybe that's what Matt Pat wants, but they're not scoring enough points. So if something doesn't turn around, I could see JBC being gone come the end of the year. But that's enough on JBC news and notes. You got anything else you want to touch on before we start talking about this game in the Windy City this weekend?
Not too much new, just still dealing with these injuries. Not sure where the O-line's going to be. I've been touting for a couple weeks, hey, okay, Golden Tate's gone. Are we going to see anything from Brandon Powell? Is Bruce Ellington, the new signee, going to bring any juice sooner than later? Or is he just going to kind of be a bottom of roster, hey, takes a little while to get up to speed guy? Those are the things I'm interested in. But, the biggest thing is just, like I said last show, about feed our studs. Let's feed some of our young up-and-coming talent and get this offense humming. And I think the defense has been a bit better. So if the offense could do what we thought it would do at the beginning of the year, we wouldn't be getting beaten all these ball games. So let's go. Let's get it here in Chicago.
Okay. Yeah, let's just jump right into it then. Talking about the game this weekend in the Windy City, the second city, Chi-Town. This team that we thought would be a total dog at the beginning of the year, somebody we'd be able to whoop up on twice, is near the top of the division. It's playing a lot better than what I thought it would. The defense, with the addition of Khalil Mack, seems to be once again monsters of the midway. Somebody's given, I don't know where it is, this defense is getting a lot of credit. I was watching this week, on NFL Network. They always do their starts and start them and sit them, and on the sit them, number one quarterback to sit, Matt Stafford. Number one running back to sit, Kerryon Johnson. Number one wide receiver to sit, Kenny Golladay. I'm not kidding. I saw that. I'm just wow, man. I guess the Lions' offense is really that bad, or the Bears' defense is really that good. What do you think about this Bears defense and the rejuvenance that the Khalil Mack trade has given these guys? Somebody we thought they'd be able to score on all of a sudden they're making these guys sound like the monster of the midway, and the Lions are going to score 5 points.
Well, like you say, we got our frustrations out on the Wednesday show. Here we are on Friday. Like, I'm hearing the same things you are. I'm seeing all this stuff. Chicago's been, I think they put up 40 plus, another 40 burger last week, and they only had, I think it was like 2 offensive TDs and like a couple defensive, and just kind of fell into those kind of points. So, I mean, they're getting a lot of credit. Khalil Mack's an absolute beast. I mean, if our offensive line plays like they did against Minnesota, I mean, it's another debacle on the road. But I think they'll sure some things up. Will they be able to deal with Khalil Mack? I don't know. He's coming off an injury, and he's just one of those primo players. So we'll kind of have to see how the Lions deal with a guy like that, because he's going to be in our division for a long time. But as usual, I'm going the opposite way of the crowd, because every week when I watch NFL football, there's no way to predict it. I mean, they got people beating teams they should never beat. You got scores that you would never predict. You've got players coming out of the woodwork that you would never have starting in your fantasy team do well. So, I mean, the NFL, you just cannot predict it at all. Everybody's saying the Lions are going to lose and sit all these players. I'm going the other way, man. I think the Lions got beat so bad and just kind of demoralized in Minnesota that they know this is another division game. They know Chicago's riding high. They know that you're going into somebody else's house. It should be hostile. Like, I think they're just going to come out and drop a bomb on Chicago. I mean, we'll get to the predictions and things later, but I think the Lions have the players to eat up this defense, and I'm expecting them to be explosive, kind of out of nowhere, where people will be like, wow, where's this been? That's what I'm expecting.
Well, Khalil Mack obviously is like giving this defense some rejuvenated confidence that feels like they can play with anybody. And I know a lot of teams will say that.
Who's Khalil Mack remind you of, Grifka?
I mean, he's I want to say he's very Lawrence Taylor-esque. Let's put it that way. But he's not the same. They're not in the same ballpark. But he's like standing right outside that ballpark. I mean, he's really, really good. It's one of those things like, maybe the Bears gave up a little too much, but it shows that they're going for it. It just seems like something Lions never do. They never just seem to go for it. But I know there's always like bravado on teams, and when the camp starts in August, like, oh yeah, I'm happy with our team. Defense will be like, yeah, we can play with anybody. But a lot of that, as the season starts to wear on, you see like, yeah, that's just talk, because everybody wants to sound like that, to their fans, in August, and they have to realize, there's guys in the locker room got to realize like, yeah, we're not as good as this team. But it seems like Khalil Mack has come into Chicago, and this defense is definitely taken a few steps up from where I thought it would be. I thought the Lions would be able to score points on them, and I know that this seems like they always play them tough in Chicago, but it seems like the Lions have always kind of been able to sneak away with a win, even though the games have been close. But Khalil Mack has definitely seemed to give this defense a shot of confidence in life that makes them very difficult. And but you just came out and said you thought the Lions would be able to drop a bomb. Don't you think maybe after the last game, it seems even after the Seattle game, Matt Stafford seems to be like a little gun shy in the pocket. Either holding the ball too long, or maybe looking for starting to look for a soft place to fall a little earlier. I know we talked about it last podcast with him pitching the ball to Kerryon so he wouldn't take the hit. I mean, you think maybe Matt Stafford's just a little gun shy?
That's what I'm saying, Grifka. Like, I rag on you most shows because, like, you will wait for a guy to, like, show you he's good, and they'll say, hey, this guy's good. It's like, yeah, no kidding. Or you'll, like, look at all these, like, where people are trending and, like, oh, the Lions have lost the last 2. Well, I'll predict them to lose this one then because they're not playing good. I'm telling you, the NFL is absolutely ridiculous as far as competitive and totally unpredictable. So I'm not, like, looking at all these indicators going, and again, look at my opinion on most things. Do I think because he was gun shy last week that he'll be gun shy this week? No, I feel like that game was its own entity. It's over with. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if this game they basically give up barely any sacks, and he just threads the needle, and we're like, wow, we're ragging on our quarterback, and then he shows up and plays incredible again. So I don't know why. I just have that feeling like him, Carry-On, some plays from Kenny, Theo, just all these guys are going to show up, and we're going to play really well in this game, and none of these trends that everyone's looking at are going to matter because it's a whole new week. Any given Sunday, son.
Okay, so if you think he could come back, I mean, I know you're always like, this game doesn't affect the next game, and the previous game doesn't affect, anything, but it can start to be a trend. And even though he's been around the league for 10 years, it can really affect his confidence if he's not trusting his offensive line to be able to block for him, to give him enough time to find open guys, or, the offensive line's not opening holes for the running backs where it falls more on his shoulders to move the ball. So, I mean, you can say, last weekend he'll be able to put it behind him, he's a pro, but, it's happened to plenty of guys that they come in, even the guys that have been around for a while, they just start getting beat on, and, they have to, like, okay, this team's not going anywhere this year. There's a point in the season, I don't want to say they mail it in, but, we have talked about this in the past on previous podcasts, that even though they've been around for a while, they've been through the battles. It's like, yeah, we know this team's not going anywhere, and they're going to be like, I just got to go out there and play. I'm going to be on the team next year, but I don't feel like going out there and getting the crap kicked out of me again. So yeah, I'm not going to stand in the pocket and wait for the long developing plays to develop. I'm going to try to find the check downs. I'm going to dish it off to the running back. Just things like that. So that's where I'm thinking Stafford may be gun shy. I mean, he didn't look that great against Seattle. He looked, even worse against Minnesota, and he's in a tough environment this week playing in Chicago against a good defense. So, it may be another one of those things where it just looks ugly, and part of that falls back on, like I said, him not trusting his offensive line. Do you think the offensive line, we talked about them bouncing back against Minnesota, and that didn't happen. Do you think maybe it could be this week against Chicago where they look like they did against Miami? They could do that against Chicago instead of looking like just a porous, nobody blocking anybody like they did against Seattle and Minnesota. Do you think the O-line can come back to where we thought they'd be?
Well, before I get to that, Grifka, I owe you one. I missed a ding. Now, if anybody's new out there, months, weeks and weeks, Grifka's been saying his same funny catch lines, his same about the 1970s Lions, telling me about all these Reggie Whites of the world. So we finally got a Grifka bell. Anytime he hits one of his phrases or he hits something that I think is one of his go-tos, we're hitting the bell, having some fun with it. So anybody that's new is listening, that's what we got going on. Now, Grifka, you just ran down for multiple minutes about what I just said, which is you just ran through all the trends, all the easy stuff to look at going, okay, he didn't play well in Minnesota. We already talked about that. That was one game. Now, he didn't play that well against Seattle either, but he didn't get killed by the O-line in that game like he did in Minnesota. So those are different scenarios. Like one is no protection. The other one, he just kind of wasn't on top of his game. Like, I don't know. I just don't see it snowballing. I feel like as long as the offensive line, that was a one-off for them. I mean, this isn't a big trend where it's been multiple games in a row. So when that like one-off stuff happens, you got to like have it happen multiple times before I start going crazy about it. So if they show up in Chicago, tighten up the O-line, and Matt Stafford starts throwing BBs all over the field, I mean, to me, that's that NFL just, hey, these are NFL players. They're up ready to roll. So, yeah, I think the O-line can get it together, and I think the quarterback, I mean, he's the type of guy where, I mean, I don't see things snowballing. The only thing I see is that are we a good enough team to beat Chicago in Chicago right now, with how we're playing as a team. Now, again, we'll get to our predictions, but I think that's the biggest question. And then more so than what happened in previous weeks, I'm just going to be watching that weather forecast because I know in Chicago they can have those crazy winds and weather. Like, I think if we go into Sunday and it's just wind swirling and rain or whatever, like, yeah, it's going to be hard to throw the football like I'm predicting now. But if we have decent weather and, hey, it's a new Sunday, we play Chicago all the time, they got a better team this year, there's still no reason we can't go in there and beat them. I mean, we've dominated them the last few years. So, each week is its own, and I'm just taking this week as, hey, we're not playing great football, but that shouldn't impact this game, I don't think.
Okay. I guess that's a wait and see. I guess trends are trends for a reason. And that's why they're called trends, because they tend to string along and snowball into bigger problems and show more of your warts than your one-off games. So
But do you watch the NFL, Grifka? You do, right?
yeah.
Do you ever like see trends and then like all of a sudden you're watching going, oh, there's no way this team can win, and then they just go whoop on the team they were supposed to get beat up by? Or do you ever see guys that are running the football really well and you're like, oh man, there's no way this guy's gonna not have a good game, and he has like 6 carries for 12 yards and no touchdowns? Like, it happens every week in the NFL that the trends, as you call them, stop, and the new trends start of like, wow, this team was playing terrible. Hey, they just ripped off 3 in a row. Like, it happens every week, every year. So, I mean, it goes the other way too. You can say trends happen, but I'm telling you, every week I watch, I think I got it all figured out, and then I look at my picks, or I look at my fantasy, or I look at my team, the Lions, and I go, I had no idea. There's no way I expected that to happen.
But it's harder to pull yourself out of a nosedive than it is if you're riding high to stay high. If you're loaded with confidence and you're confident trend, like you said, you lose a couple games in a row and you don't look very good, and the next, the third game you get a couple breaks your way and you pull one out. Then the next game, you play it a little better and you keep it going, and you're on the ascent. I mean, it's easier to stay there as opposed to like, okay, didn't have a good game. The next game, gosh, that's the second bad game in a row. Third one, gosh, we just didn't look good again. You start to question yourself, the confidence. I mean, it's harder to pull yourself out of a nosedive. And I know you're always harking back to like, oh, these guys are pro athletes and blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't matter. Sports is sports. And if you lose confidence, it's hard to get it back. You can say like, well, they're going to put that game behind them. That's just rhetoric, man. After a while, I mean, and you always hear those things like, oh, athletes are just tired of losing. Well, I'm sure the Lions who went winless were tired of losing too, but they just didn't have the freaking talent to do anything about it. So they go out and win. So, like I said, trends are trends for a reason. And you can say the previous game doesn't affect this game. And I know we differ on that because I think it does. Things snowball, and you're right, trends change. A couple breaks go your way and things happen. But it's harder to pull yourself out of a nosedive, and where this team has looked, for as good as they looked in Miami the last 2 games, they've looked that bad. We thought they'd be closer, and like now what? It's a 7.5 point spread or something like that in Chicago. I mean, are the Bears really that good? Does Mitchell Trubisky really put the fear of God in you? Like, where you got to like, oh my gosh, we got to worry about this guy. I mean, do you think Mitchell Trubisky is going to lead these guys to like a 8-point win, or and I know he's talked 10 points is a lot in a pro game, but does Mitchell Trubisky really fear you?
Oh man, I don't even know where to start. I want to start at the end where you said, "Does he fear you?" I think you got that phrase wrong, Grifka, because like I said before, he doesn't fear me or you. Like, doesn't the phrase go, "Do you fear Mitchell Trubisky?" Isn't that the way it goes? I mean, he doesn't he doesn't fear you, of course, but we might fear him. I mean, like, so here's my thing on what you said. Again, you went through the trends. This is definitely where we differ. I had to bell you on snowball because I was going to say, do we have to go back to our snowball argument, Grifka, where you think everything piles on top of each other, everything impacts it? Oh, I had a bad day on Tuesday, so my Wednesday is going to be terrible. Like, I just overall don't think it works that way. I feel like at the end of the year, if the Lions end up, with 5-6 wins, you're going to say like, oh, everything piled up, like we lost our mojo. I'm going to probably just look at you and say, like, we didn't have enough talent yet. We're in year 1 of Matt Pat, and the team wasn't consistent. They couldn't stop the run. We didn't have enough explosive plays. I'll give you all these reasons, but my main reason isn't going to be, oh, we lost 3-4 games there, so the rest of the year they just couldn't get it together. Like, I think these guys literally take it one game at a time. I feel like, yes, it's great when you're winning games, you get a little bit of mojo, but also when you're losing, like, you're a little bit down. But I mean, unless you're playing, like if they were playing the Chiefs this week, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, we're going to get smoked because like they have a crazy offense and our defense is still getting it together. But when we're playing Chicago, it's like they have a little bit better run game and some receivers, but their offense doesn't scare me, and their defense is just, it's better off the edges, and they have a nice rookie linebacker, but I'm just not scared. It's not a team that I would go in just chalking it up as a loss. So, like you say, we'll differ on those points, but we'll just see what they do on Sunday. That'll be the big show and tell. Is like they come out and they play absolutely terrible again, then I'll tip my cap to you. But if they come out and play a great game and are right in it and either win it or lose it, but look a lot better and way different than they did in Minnesota, then you'll have to tip your cap to me of that. Hey, not every week doesn't bleed into the next week, man. It just doesn't.
Okay, but I guess so. You don't think Mitchell Trubisky's that great a quarterback? I guess that's my question. Do you just think he's another guy, or do you think he could be something that would pick the Lions defense apart?
I mean, overall as a player, I just think he's a mid to upper mid tier type quarterback. He has weapons which help him. He's able to make a lot of plays with his feet this year, which is sometimes kills the Lions. They have a guy like Tariq Cohen, who's a explosive kind of screen, dynamic running back that I could see hurting us. But no, Mitchell Trubisky's not a guy that I'm afraid of or that think we have no chance against him. I expect him to maybe turn the ball over a couple times that could help us win this football game. But I mean, he's no slouch either. He's been playing pretty good this year. He's finding ways to win, and you got to give him that. But no, I don't think he's very good, and he definitely doesn't scare me, and I'm sure the Lions aren't going in worrying about him first and foremost. I mean, they better be worrying about Khalil Mack off the edge. They better be worrying about how to stop Howard and Cohen and deal with some of these guys they have on the outside with them all banged up, or even if they're not banged up, they've just been terrible opposite of Slay, but those are the things you got to worry about. But yeah, no, Mitchell Trubisky, he's just a young guy that's mid to upper mid, and that's probably his ceiling. I don't ever see him being a top level dynamic quarterback. No.
Okay, so if the Lions passing defense can kind of put the clamps on Trubisky, what do you think even with Snacks, what do you think against Cohen and Howard?
What do I think they'll do against Cohen and Howard? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Well, I kind of just laid it out. I mean, Howard sort of written off, and then last week, again, perfect example how the NFL, everyone's like, oh, Jordan Howard, I don't know, they're trending where he's getting weeded out. What is the last week? He has, 2 touchdowns, 100 yards, whatever he had. He had a good much. And then Tariq Cohen, oh, he's trending up. He's going to be the guy. He's explosive. He had like 1 carry, 1 catch, something ridiculous where he just had absolutely no numbers. So that just shows you that Sunday every week, these guys are just doing something that, the other team won't expect, the fans won't expect. So I think when you're dealing with these running backs, Howard's a bigger guy. He's tough to stop when they're close to the end zone. And the Lions have been pretty terrible over the years with dealing with screen passes. Ends to running backs, they always seem to catch us, get our guys in space, and we just get eat up by some of those type of plays. So they better be on their P's and Q's with these guys, because it's a nice 1-2 punch. And Howard doesn't really scare me from a dynamic level, which used to be good. It was like, hey, okay, he's pretty good, but he can't really get in game breakers, or he can't beat us by himself. But with that little fella back there, I mean, he's a guy that can go 70 yards to the house, and I sure hope that doesn't happen on Sunday.
Yeah, even with Snacks, it seems like he's made some plays and tackles, but still the run defense is lacking. So I know the Bears Long was put on IR this week, and I think he's always been kind of like their last few years been their best offensive lineman. So that helps Detroit some, but still, I think they're going to have their hands full, with trying to stop Cohen and Howard. I know last podcast you mentioned how Davis was playing better, but I don't think he had that good a game against Minnesota. once again, maybe that's just kind of a one-off, and he'll rebound against Chicago. But I just think Cohen, the Lions are going to have a hard time covering him. I don't think they have linebackers that are fast enough to cover him, even on the backfield. I don't know. I think they're just going to have a really hard time stopping those guys. And they'll probably try to load up the box. I think the Lions are going to try to load up the box. That made, Trubisky beat him with his arm. But still, I think stopping the run game is going to be a difficult thing for Detroit come Sunday. They just those running backs. I know we talked about them early in the year and even in the preseason. That was probably going to be like the make or break guys for the Bears offense, and it seems like they've been doing that this year. And Trubisky's been like, just don't lose us the game. And like you said, he has thrown some picks, and the defense has won a lot of games for Chicago as well. But I think stopping that run game is going to be the most difficult thing that the Lions are going to have to face this weekend.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, if you're asking me, one of the toughest is going to be defending whoever's Tease or Nevin Lawson is guarding, because that's been an absolute just tire fire, as Matt Derry would say. I mean, these guys not only can't cover when they are there, all they do is grab and hold, and it's just a embarrassment every time the ball goes their way. So that's what I'm worried about.
But Paul Pasqualoni said, Tease is improving. He likes where he's going, and Nevin Lawson, he's a competitor. He fights for everything.
Oh boy! Paul Pasqualoni wears Mother Goose glasses down on his nose. I take nothing he says seriously.
Yeah, that's like one of those things. Like what I listen to those talks, and I watched those college senior bowls, because it's one of those things you see guys that you don't get to see a whole lot, especially at small schools. And there's certain things when they ask you about certain guys, and like, what do you think about this quarterback, or what do you think about this guy? If the first thing like the coach or whatever brings up is like, we really like his intangibles, because I've heard that before. It's like, it's like a guy's like, will this guy make a roster? They talk about, will this guy get drafted? And like the guy goes to the Senior Bowl, and they're like, well, what do you think about this guy? And they're like, well, we really like his intangibles. When a coach says that, it means they suck at what they think they're gonna do. Like if you like talking about a quarterback and you're like, we like his intangibles, that means he's horrible at running an offense, because he obviously can't read a defense or anything like that. So when Paul Pasqualoni sits there and says, like, well, we really think Tease is improving, we watched the tape, he's improving, and Nevin Lawson's a fighter, we really think he's a fighter, it means they suck at what you're paying them to do, because you can't say like, when it's not like they're saying that about Darius Slay. It's like, yeah, he shuts down only half the field.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't say that. They're looking for like, well, yeah, he fights really hard. Well, congratulations. I'm glad he's out there fighting, but he's terrible. And the same with Tabor. He's improving. We like his trajectory. Well, this is like, very slow. I mean, where did you expect him to be at? Because if he's like near where you expect him to be at, like how many more years before he's good? Because that guy's chasing plays. That's all I ever seen him do. He's always 2 steps behind the guy catching the ball. So that's the way I kind of feel about when they say stuff like, oh, well, he tries hard and he's improving and he really fights. It means like, oh, because he sucks at what you actually want him to do, you're trying to find the best thing to say about him. And when, like I said, like, oh, what do you think about this quarterback? We like his intangibles. Oh, okay, because he sucks. He can't throw the ball. So that's kind of what I felt about those comments.
I got another person's opinion on Tease and Nevin Lawson. You want to hear him?
Yeah.
All right, hold on. Let me get him on the line here.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is a more realistic take on Tease and Nevin Lawson.
That's pitiful. I mean, it's absolutely pitiful to perform like that. Pitiful. It stunk.
There you go. That's an opinion I respect from the good old Jim Mora about those two guys. Like, Tease has been terrible. Nevin's been terrible. There's nothing good. They're not trending in the right direction. Like, I wouldn't mind Tease getting beat, but he hasn't made any plays, like impactful picks or turnovers like we thought he would. Nevin Lawson, we've seen this year in, year out. The guy's way too handsy. I mean, he's sort of in position, but he's never making plays. Always getting his pass interferences. So It is what it is, man. Like you say, that's just window dressing by the coaches trying to. That's the best they got right now. But yeah, that's our biggest worry, man. Is how they're gonna plug that hole on Sunday so we don't get flooded with passes on us over those guys.
Okay. Well, we talked about this game a little bit, offense, defense, what the Lions need to do. How do you see this game going on Sunday?
I mean, we've talked about it all show. Every trend is Lions have no chance. They're not going to be able to do anything offensively. The Bears defense, they're one of the top teams in the North. Bah, 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 bah. Everything on my brain tells me that they're not playing good football. This should be a tough road game. There's really no way they can get it. And then I thought, hey, I'm on the Detroit Koolaid Cast, Grifka. I'm a Lions fan. I feel like everybody thought it might happen last week where all the indicators were saying, they're not going to win and they were going to come in and get it. Instead, they did what the pundits thought, which was go in and not play very well and get beat. So I think this is a game, again, the up-down theory, the NFL, where everything's pointing the wrong direction. I don't see why the Lions aren't motivated, come in there, beat a Bears team who's probably riding high, and do it in kind of crazy fashion. Like, if the weather is good, which, again, I don't know what's going to be like in Chicago. I haven't looked yet. But if the weather's good there, I feel that they come in. Matt Stafford plays a lot better. There might be a sack here or there, but nothing like we saw in Minnesota. I heard a lot of comments from Kerryon that he was frustrated with how he's played, or, there's no excuses on why he's getting stopped and not. So it's been a couple games since he's run the ball well. He didn't forget how to run the ball, and he didn't slow down at all. So, I may be crazy, but I'm just thinking Lions come in, maybe put up 30 on this team and win, I think it'd be closer. Like, if we score 30, I still don't know that we're there defensively. So I think the Bears probably score anywhere from 24 to 28. But, I'm putting the Lions at 33, Bears 28 in this game.
Wow. I guess I didn't see that coming. I thought it'd be more of a slugfest for you. But, okay. I could, like you said.
You've said that with every one of my predictions. You always say you never see it coming.
Yeah.
Here we go. Let the people know why they're going to lose, Grifka, why you hate the Lions, even though you're on the Kool-Aid Cast.
Like you said.
Why the trends are showing that they're not going to do it.
Like I said, I agree with you that I could see the Bears putting up 24, 28 points. I really could. But until they show me something against a decent defense, I don't see the Lions scoring no 33 points. I mean, we had this conversation with a friend. I had a conversation with a friend last week before the Minnesota game, and it's like he kind of did what you did. He goes, they'll go up and win that game because it's unexpected. It's the Lions are unpredictable. I mean, every week something else happens. So he went along. He's like, he took the Lions to beat Minnesota. And I'm just like, well, I don't know. Minnesota's pretty tough. And, I thought it'd be a lot closer than what it was. But, you heard my prediction. And still, I know it's an unpredictable game, but until the Lions show me some trend where they're going to go out and throw up 33 points, I don't see them scoring that much. I'm going to take the Bears in this game. I got them winning this game probably 23 to 14. I'm taking the Bears winning 23-14 in Chicago.
Oh, you're just letting the people down again, Grifka. Give them the tagline. You might as well do it. Do you think the Lions will win, Grifka?
Do I want them to win? Yes. Do I expect them to? No.
There it is, people. That's Grifka's classic. He's always, I want them to do well, but I don't think they will. I'd love them to win this Sunday, but they won't. They're going to get blown out. He covers both sides, everybody. He thinks too much with his head, not with his heart. I put him in the Kool-Aid Cast. I don't know if he's even ever tasted the Honolulu Blue
You're right.
Kool-Aid.
I think with my head,
just looking at the records, looking at the facts.
I think with my head and not my heart. I realized that my heart would be like, oh gosh, please go out and win. But do I see him doing it? No, because my head's like, Mike, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. So
just got that Lions loser mentality. Got that woe is me. Got that old Grifka. It's happened for decades. Why would it change now? I'm wearing out the bell, Grifka, with all these things. And then when they win next week, you'll be right back on saying, wow, they played a lot better. I don't know. Maybe something changed. Got them back in the playoffs. Like, I've seen this story
No,
before. We know how it
no,
goes.
no, they're not making the playoffs this year. They got way too many losses with what they have left. So that's not happening.
Okay,
They're not
well,
going to roll off 7 wins here all of a sudden. That's just not going to happen. But good luck.
all right. Well,
Okay.
I'm glad you're drinking the Kool-Aid. But everybody, I got our Lions getting a W. Again, I'm the fan favorite on this podcast, Grifka, and this is why, because you're too negative for the people. You're looking at it too logically. You're just, down on the team because the team is down when really you should be up because they're our team. And I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Let's get a W in Chicago. There's no reason this team should beat us. We've dominated them. They're just the Chicago Bears. What does the guy in '97 went? Chicago. That's what I'm thinking. We go in and say Chicago and just whoop their tail. Let's go.
No, I realize the state of Michigan just legalized, recreational marijuana use, but I want to know what you're taking, because you're always like, oh man, they're gonna go in there and kick their butt. They're not that great. Minnesota's not that great. Chicago's not
This
great.
is the Detroit Koolaid Cast, Grifka. This is what I
you
do.
must be popping something funny in your Kool-Aid that you're drinking. You must be giving me the clean stuff because, like I said, I'm thinking with my head.
Just Honolulu blue flavor, Grifka. That's all I need. And like you say, it's been a tough season, and this team is in not the best of situations. But again, I'm predicting a win in Chicago, and against all odds, man, any given Sunday. Let's go.
Okay. Well, no, we know how both of us think on this game. Let's move on here and let's go through a few questions here. Got some things here. Nothing from our fans, but it's like I started to think about like how you always kind of like make fun of me. You got the bell, like, oh, my old school guys, that I always keep bringing up. But I want to do something this week, like who would you rather have? Now I'll bring up somebody that that I think you've seen, or at least know something about, know their Detroit Lions career. And I'm not talking who would you rather have, Barry Sanders or Kerryon Johnson. Duh, obviously. I'm not going that way.
Give me Kerryon.
Yeah, whatever, man. Shut up. I'm not talking right now, and I still think Barry Sanders would be able to outrush Kerryon even right now.
Kerryon's cheaper.
Yeah, he's cheaper, man. He'll be good for 3 years as opposed to the 10 years we had Barry.
Younger and cheaper.
Okay.
Well, you said he'd be here for 10 years. I didn't say that.
Okay, so I'm talking former Lions players in their prime against guys that we have now. Who would you take? If you had this guy in his prime against this guy, who would you take? Okay, let's start off with somebody. We'll go fan favorite, just gotten to put in the pride of the Lions. Who would you rather have? Would you rather have Herman Moore or Marvin Jones?
This one's pretty easy for me. I mean, I'm a new age guy, but I mean, Herman Moore was no joke. I mean, he put up numbers. He was consistent. He was a guy that was established in the NFL. To me, like when they signed Marvin Jones, I wasn't high on it. I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like when they signed him, I was kind of like, oh no. Now, since he's been here in the Lions uniform, he's been a bit better than I expected. I mean, knew he was kind of a smooth athlete and whatnot, and was kind of hitting that prime of his career. And he's been pretty good in the Lions uniform, but I mean, he's no 84, no Herman Moore, so I'm going to go with Herm on this one, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I'm there with you on there. I mean, Herman Moore was probably a top 5 receiver for probably, I mean, it was a smaller stretch. I mean, it was probably like, it was 3-4 years there. Herman Moore is probably one of the top 5 receivers in the league. It's one of those things that, when people always say like the Lions just kind of wasted, Barry Sanders' career away, they wasted Calvin Johnson's career away. I mean, some people just forget about Herman Moore in the way, he was just, by far the number 1 wide receiver on this team. I mean, they had a nice compliment with Brett Perriman at one point, Johnny Morton, but Herman Moore was still the number 1 guy. There wasn't a debate on who it was. And like I said, with him being, a top 5 receiver in the league at some, probably like a 3-4 stretch he was, I don't see Marvin Jones ever doing that. Maybe the game's changed a little bit and a lot more passing even now than what there was, when Herman Moore played, but that still wasn't too long ago. It wasn't ancient history. So, I'm right there with you. It's I would take Herman Moore in this prime over Marvin Jones in his prime. Let's flip to the other side of the ball here really quick. And I know you've heard me talk about this guy before. I mean, this one might be a little tougher for you. Who would you rather have? Would you rather have your boy who never touches the field, Ziggy, or Robert Porcher?
Oh man, what do you think I'm going to say on this one, Griff? What does the
Oh yeah,
people
you're gonna
think I'm
take
going to say
Ziggy
on this
because you
one?
guys you're gonna take Ziggy because you guys have a date tonight. So you're taking him out to Ruth Chris. You're gonna give him a nice steak. You guys are gonna share some potato and asparagus. So go ahead, man.
That was a bang for Grifka's hating on Ziggy Ansah, but the people, everybody thinks I'm gonna go with Ziggy. I mean, I still think his potential is great, but I mean, when you're just looking at who would I rather have, I mean, when you're looking at what they did over a career, like Robert Porcher has the better production and the better like player on paper. Now, I mean, if Ziggy can ever get it healthy and get in the right situation, like we've agreed, it won't be here in Detroit. But if he goes somewhere else and is healthy and is able to make plays, I mean, he has a higher upside and could have a really nice career. But I mean, Porsche's already done it. He was a kind of a centerpiece here. I mean, I'm gonna go with him, even though like I'm a big upside guy and I like to project Grifka on what they might do rather than just rag on them for when they're not good, like you love to do, and that's why I got to hit you with the bell. So, I mean, give me Robert Porcher, but if I'm a GM, I'm playing the upside card with Ziggy over a flatline standard type production, which is what I think kind of Porcher gave you for all the pub he got and for all the whooping up the crowd he did. I mean, I don't think his numbers were anything stellar over his career.
Yeah, I don't even know. You don't even have to ask on this. I'll take Robert Porcher jumping off sides like how he would do every once in a while. I mean, that's kind of what he notoriously would jump off sides in bad situations. But I would still take him jumping off sides, at least him being on the field, as opposed to watching Ziggy play, his 5 snaps a game, then getting hurt with a, mysterious shoulder injury or Achilles or knee or, hangnail or, fat lip or whatever. So, yeah, we don't even have to talk about this one. Robert Porcher, any day of the week and twice on Sundays.
Yeah. I'm biting my tongue. Let's move on.
Okay. Now let's go with this one. Let's go back over to the offensive side of the ball. Let's go. Would you rather have Michael Roberts, even though it's only, he's still pretty young, or David Sloan?
Yeah, I don't know. Everybody out there, I think Grifka picked these topics just so he could reminisce about what he thinks are the good old days with some of his favorites back in the mid '80s, '90s Lions. But I mean, I heard about David Sloan. I remember him doing some things, but I mean, if I got to pick, I still don't think we've seen very much from Michael Roberts. I mean, I think he's going to be an inconsistent player. But I think when you look at it at the end of the day, he's going to be a guy that probably scores more touchdowns than David Sloan, more athletic, better blocker, better receiver in different ways. So I'm going to go with my boy Mike Robb, Big Mike on this one, that when it's all said and done, he'll be the better football player in the annals of what we think of Lions tight ends. But I know David Sloan has his fan club of, I don't know what his numbers were over his career, but I know people will remember that name. But give me Big Mike. Let's go. Let's Mike Roberts. Let's get more active and more into this offense, especially in the red zone.
Dang, man. I know you hate it when I do this. Get the bell, but I got to agree with you on that. David Sloan, I remember him, and I was happy when they drafted him, but he became one of those guys I would call him Sloan Hands, just because Sloan riding with Stone. I mean, he was one of those guys, he would kind of Eric Ebron-esque. He would make a tough catch, but then ones where he would be standing wide open in a soft part of the zone, and the ball would hit him in the numbers, and he would just drop it. And it'd be like, dude, what are you doing? And he was a better blocker than Ebron, but it's like, there's frying pan hands, there's Sloan. But like you said, I don't think the Lions have totally tapped all the potential that Michael Roberts has, especially in the red zone. So even at this point in his career, against even at David Sloan, in his prime, I would still take Michael Roberts on the Lions. Let's hop back over to the defensive side of the ball for the last couple here. These guys I've compared in the past, and you've kind of smacked me down, but who would you rather have? Would you rather have Dre Bly or Big Play Slay?
Oh, man. This is a closer race and one of your better questions or comparisons right here. I mean, yeah, I love how you say or big play Slay, because my biggest issue with this guy has been, okay, he's got this fun nickname, but let's name all of his big plays. I think we can count them on one hand. Even though that was more than when you used to call him that, and he had like zero, and I used to rag on him that he never made big plays, even though he called himself that. Um, you know, kind of like my early days as a Lions fan, it was kind of that, mid to late Dre Bly type time where, I mean, it just seemed like every time the Lions were getting a big play from one of their corners, it was Dre. I mean, he had the swag, he had the ability to kind of read plays, jump routes, do all the types of things like where you wouldn't notice him, and then all of a sudden maybe a pick six or something crazy to get you back in a game. So I love the way Dre Bly played. I mean, I know we kind of got him, not on the his top of his career, but I felt like his years with the Lions were good years. And overall, I think he probably made more splash plays and just was more fun to watch a little bit more than Slay. So I'm going to go with the throwback. I mean, give me Dre here, even though I've come your way saying that Slay's a good football player, no doubt about it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take Slay. I mean, he's been my boy since they drafted him, and I always told you he's going to be good, and I think he's finally, reached that point. And like I said, he doesn't get plays because they don't throw at him, because they're throwing at the other, garbage can that's playing on the other side of the field, But I know, was it a couple of years ago, I always said Slay was kind of high risk, high reward, and you're like, no, he doesn't play that way. And where Dre Bly, that's what he was. He would try to jump routes, and there were times he got burned. I mean, it's kind of like that gunslinger mentality at the quarterback position, trying to fit the tight window. That's where Bly's like, okay, I think I can get it. High risk, high reward. If he missed it, nobody was behind him. The safety wouldn't be back there, and the guy was usually housing it after he caught it. But at this point in their career, I'll take Slay. He's prime in the career. Just something I like about Slay a little more than I like Dre Bly. I mean, maybe it was, like you said, for all the times that maybe I'm just remembering like the bad times, the times that he got housed on, as opposed to, like you said, there's plenty of games where you're right. It seemed like the Lions were out of it. Then Slay or Bly would make a play, and they'd be back in it. But I'm going to take a Slay on this one. And got one more for you here. I realize this one guy's only been with the team a short time, but both could be dominant, when they want to be. I think the one could be dominant when he felt like playing, and the other one, he's just dominant. We're realizing that right now. But who would you rather have? Would you rather have Snacks Harrison or Shawn Rogers?
Oh man! Now a lot of my buddies that are listening to this, or the shout out to the Big Hughes who is dialing up the Detroit Koolaid Cast. I know they were big baby fans. Shawn Rogers, was just a guy that was pretty fun to watch. Just a huge big fellow that always seemed to flash when you turned the game on Sundays. But you got to give me the new fella, Snacks, on this one. I already talked about how I love his mouth guard, his face mask, how the guy looks nasty in the jersey. When I saw some interviews with him, he just seems like a football player the Lions really needed at the position, a guy that will fit really well in Detroit as he grows with the team, the community, all that stuff. I think overall he's probably has a better tape, better overall production at this point in his career. Still got more to do, and to me, I'm going to lean towards Snacks on this one. But I will never forget Grifka being at Ford Field when Shawnee Rogers picked off that ball against Denver and rumbled and stumbled and dove into the end zone. Like, just one of the greatest plays of all time. As a Lions fan, going nuts. I just remember that so vividly in my head. So that was a huge play. He had a couple others, but I think Snacks, you'll see that same kind of thing from him, or just that down dirty, just consistent football, stopping the run, being real nasty. I mean, he had a play last week where he just snatched the guy and threw him to the ground. I loved it. So I'm going to go with the new fella, but I know the Big Hughes and others love some 92 in the middle back in the black jersey days for the Lions.
Yes, Shawn Rogers was that guy that when they drafted him, it's just like, oh, great, he was injured at Texas. I don't know if he's going to be any good, But gosh, Sean Rogers could dominate when he wanted to dominate. He was even going back a little farther. Jerry Ball was the same way. Just when they wanted to dominate, it's just like, okay, we're turning on. We're going to dominate. And kind of like a poor man's Ndamukong Suh, where Suh, when he was on the Lions, he just, he would just dominate when he wanted to. But I would go with Snacks simply because like you said, I vividly remember watching that on TV where Rodgers caught that ball against Denver and it looked like he was running out of gas, with 15 yards yet to go. It's like for some I don't know how he made it to the end zone, but I remember Marinelli. It wasn't the win this year. It was another year where they were struggling.
No, they were like, that got them to like 5-2 or something ridiculous. They were on a big push with Captain Rod at the helm that year, and then they fell off the wagon right after that.
But yeah, I can't remember what game it was, but Sean Rogers was like on the team, and there was that rumblings, and through the media that he wasn't happy. He wasn't happy with how the way how he's playing, his playing time, blah blah blah. And there was this goal line play where he wasn't in there, and they ran right at where he would have played, and they just bowled over his backup, and it was a touchdown for the other team. And the post game, they asked Marinelli, like, how come Sean Rogers wasn't in there? And they're like, well, we have packages, certain defensive packages, and it just wasn't the package he was on. And then they asked us, like, well, he's your best defensive lineman. Why wouldn't that put that package in, to put him in there? And he was like, well, it was just, that's the package we went with, blah, blah, blah. So it kind of almost put, credence to the fact that Sean Rogers was, like, lazy and taking off plays and wasn't just happy being there. So, and it seems like I've never heard that, Snacks anywhere. The Jets, the Giants, he was always going his plays, like you said, he's not a full, 3-down guy, but it seems like he's the high motor guy every time. It doesn't sound like I've never heard or read anything where like, yeah, this guy takes plays off. I know we said that about Nick Fairley. I didn't like him because I took plays off at Auburn, but I've never heard that or read that on Snacks. So yeah, I'm going with Snacks on this one as well, because it just seems like you said he's going to endear himself to the city. The fans are going to end up loving this guy just for how hard he plays. And like you said, that play against Minnesota where he just beat off the blocker and just threw Dalvin Cook to the ground, and just like he made it look so easy. Sean Rogers could do that when he wanted to, but it seemed like more often than not, he was just like, okay, I'm out here. Okay, okay, I want to play this play now. Do something great, but then you expect in the next play, and he'd be like, 6-7 plays in a row, he'd be nowhere to be seen. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with Snacks on this one as well.
So you tend to
agree with you, of course. There you go.
Perfect.
Well, okay, Derek. I mean, I know we brought some of our Honolulu Blue, drinkers. Some fun here, reminiscing about the old players that used to be on here and, comparing them to new guys and who we'd rather have. And we broke down the Chicago game, but you got anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
I think we're set, Grifka. I mean, I drank a lot of blue Kool-Aid. You hated on them a lot, and you got to reminisce about the old days, which you talk about every week. And I got to talk about some of the new players that are going to lead us into the future and get us to win some football games. So I'm going out on a limb against Chicago and expecting a big W, a big bounce-back performance. And if I'm wrong, I'll admit it next week. And you're taking the easy way out and saying they'll lose because they've lost the last couple. And if they show up on Chicago, I expect you to humble yourself next Wednesday when we rejoin the people on the Koolaid Cast. Sound like a plan?
Yep, I can go with that.
All right, everybody. So let's go Lions. Let's get it together. There's still 8 football games left. The record doesn't look good, but winning the game in Chicago will get them to 5-4. No reason that they couldn't play good for the next couple of stretches, and then towards the back end of the schedule, we'll have a few games that look like they should be light or should be easier coming down that home stretch. So everybody hang in there with this football team, and they're still building. They're still adding pieces here and there, but this season's not over. And drink that Kool-Aid, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week for the Detroit Koolaid Cast. Everybody take care, and let's go on Sunday. Go Lions.
This Sunday, I'm going to give you what you crave, what everybody here craves. Drink it in, man.